Oh my gosh. Yay! Yay, yay, yay! We are live, everyone. I am going to share this really quickly on my personal Facebook page. And I'm going to be encouraging everyone to do this today because you will have an opportunity to win some really cool things in our art swag bag and also a free music lesson. So come and watch and learn. And I am sharing and I've shared. Yes, here we go, guys. Welcome all. I'm going to do a little introduction and then introduce and have my special guest introduce herself as well. Welcome and thank you for joining us for our special presentation entitled Using the Arts to Help with Chronic Pain. This is a educational and hopefully fun-filled event for you today in collaboration with my good friend Jennifer of Music for Me Studios. My name is Kelly, and I am the creator and executive director of the Portland-based nonprofit More Than Lupus. And if you're unfamiliar with More Than Lupus, we are a multi-ethnic, multi-generational, and international lupus community designed by lupus patients to connect, to grow, and inspire each other throughout the peaks and the valleys of our unique lupus journeys. Now, we believe every person living with lupus, no matter their background, should be treated with equity and dignity and taken seriously. It's our mission for patients to feel heard, to feel seen, and to feel valued. So today's event will spotlight chronic pain and the arts. And we hope the information provided today and our lived experiences shared today will be used as a resource to propel you to maybe incorporate some of these things into your daily practices. So make sure, as I mentioned earlier, make sure you share this live chat on your personal Facebook page and write shared in the comments, because let me show you real quick. Let me just show you some of, this is not all, some of the really fun things that are in this arts swag bag. We even got hand warmers for you if your hands start to get cold. If you're drawing or journaling, we've got a candle for you to kind of set the mood. We are very excited. So enough of me talking. Let me introduce who I have here. I have Jennifer here with us, guys. This is a good friend of mine. We've known each other for what?
Oh dear.
Years?
Here comes the math.
20
That
years?
sounds about right. Yes?
Is that really true?
I think so. I think we're in the right ballpark, somewhere around there.
I think so. And we met doing a show. Actually, we met before that. We
We
met
did.
at an audition
Yes.
and we both got cast in another show. Okay, before we go down memory lane, please introduce yourself, Jen.
I
Or
love it.
I like to call you JW, but
Yes, please
Jennifer.
do. Please do. Yeah. Of course, when I was in college, there were 15 Jennifers in our college choir. And so we all started going by slightly different nicknames. So anyone who wants to call me JW, I'm on board. And I wasn't sure in our nostalgia if you would remember that event, because we were cast in a show, and then we ended up meeting in a secondary show afterwards. We can talk about that in a bit, for My Fair Lady, which was one of the most fun artistic experiences I've ever had. But yeah, just in terms of me personally, my name's Jennifer Wilcove. I have a master's in music from Azusa Pacific University. And I've had the great privilege of being a professional musical theater performer for the last 20 plus years. I do voiceover work. I got to do the Broadway national tour of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and have also had a number of personal experiences with chronic pain, as I think a lot of individuals do. And then Kelly and I were able to reconnect earlier this year. I was going through a really specific surgery process. And so, kind of combined with some of my chronic pain issues, I really wanted to press into the skills that I already had. And so, an individual might ask themselves, well, how exactly does musical theater hope to contribute to a chronic pain situation? But I continually discovered more and more opportunities to utilize the benefits of art therapy, not just for advancing my artistic pursuits, but I found that it really had a lot of benefits for me physically, emotionally,
Mhm.
spiritually, and I really enjoy sharing some of those ideas with anyone that it might be helpful for.
Yes, I'm so thankful that we were chatting a little bit before we went live, that we got to connect on this level. Because I don't think, were you aware that I had lupus way back when? Yeah.
I vaguely remember you're mentioning something about maybe a medical procedure, or you had been in the hospital or something like that. And it caught my attention because we were just sitting, at the dressing room tables, and I thought, wow, that seems like kind of an intense thing. But then we sort of just went about our business, and we got our places call, and we continued onward. And so I think it's easy for us just to kind of, if we're in survival mode, especially,
Yes,
we just kind
yes,
of make it work, so to speak.
yes. And I think whether you have lupus or another chronic condition, or you live with chronic pain, you're constantly walking that tension of how much to share, because you feel like with chronic pain or the chronic illness or situation, there is no resolution a lot of the time. So you worry people are going to get tired of hearing about your situation. You're worried that you may be viewed as a liability,
Yes.
and that was one of the reasons why I was always so careful about when I would talk about it and who I would talk about it with, because I was so nervous. Like, I would do shows and I'd have a surgery in between, and very little people would know
Yes.
that I lived with systemic lupus since the age of 11. I've been hospitalized for months and months and months, and I realized I did that because, yes, like you said, survival mode.
Hmm.
And also, I was really scared that this one show would be your last show, Kelly. And, with actors, you always have feeling that anyway. Like, after you finish
Right.
a gig, you always feel like, oh, this is it. I'm done.
Yeah, it's
I
true.
peaked.
Yes.
That's it. But yeah, so it's really, really hard, and not to go down that rabbit trail, but I think our relationship has evolved to full circle this
Mm.
conversation in that way. And it is really great that we can connect with all the different parts of ourselves, and how it has brought us closer together. Now, I did want to, for those that are joining right now, go a little bit down memory lane. So tell everyone what show this is, JW.
So delightful. Well, I wanted to speak to what you were just saying, because I think in the arts and in many industries, there is this element of collaboration. And so we want people to know, you can rely on me. I am
Yes.
reliable. And so it is very difficult to express those ideas. And each individual has the freedom and the choice to decide when, where, who it's
Yes.
appropriate, right? That's
Yes.
never an obligation. The great thing about art therapy is that it allows us to express these ideas in a way that makes sense for us. And if we decide to showcase it or share it with our community, we have that choice. I can't believe you found these pictures. We look great. I will tell you, I'm having visceral memories of this dance piece because it was so exhausting, so physically arduous. I think this is a part of, like, Get Me to the Church on Time from the
Yes.
classic My Fair Lady.
My Fair Lady. Yes, this is My Fair Lady. And that's us warming our hands by a fake fire on the other picture. And that was the opening scene, which we loved so much. And we loved our pre-show dancing. And because they had the giant staircase behind the puff curtain there, and we would be up and down that, and you would be twirling with our friend Isaac, and we'd be stretching and singing and all these things, and people had no idea all the shenanigans that were happening behind the curtain. But let's talk about the first time we met was actually not at this audition. It was at Barnum, right?
Yes, well
Barnum.
done. Gold star
Barnum.
for you.
Which I had to drop out of because I got cast in Moonlight.
Yes, yes. Well, we can't be everywhere at once.
But this is the funny thing, people, for those that are watching. JW, Jennifer, you got cast as a very, very, very senior character in this show.
I did.
And you were like 21 or something ridiculous, 22,
Yes.
23.
Yes.
And you were playing you were the black
Literally,
white, right?
it was-
You sang that song, right?
It was literally listed as the oldest woman alive. I was like, bring it. My wisdom and my maturity has finally come to fruition at 23. But here's the thing. As a character actress, this is happening all the time. So we're always
Yes.
asked to play extreme age ranges, whether it's like 5 or 500. So this was not the first time that I was asked to play a character slightly older, but it is rather
A little long in the tooth there. We're like, oh my gosh. And you had to sing the song at the piano. I remember, I'm like, who is this young gal who is so gifted at playing this old woman singing the blues?
I love it.
Oh my gosh. Oh, our story is drawing a crowd now. We got some people watching.
Hey,
Thanks, guys. Make sure you share this on your personal Facebook page. You're going to win so many fun things in our art swag bag.
yes.
Okay, so we meet doing at the Barnum
Yes.
audition and then at our first few rehearsals. And then I leave you there and you
Yes.
do a great job on that show. And then we meet again at My Fair Lady.
Yes.
And I gotta say, being in the ensemble of that show is absolutely spectacular. I mean, it is nothing to sneeze at. You're
Yeah.
dancing, you're singing in mostly 8-part harmonies during all the 4 festivals. I remember too. Guys, we will get to some technical stuff here, but I'm having way too much fun reminiscing. I remember there was a moment in the first picture that was Get Me to the Church from My Fair Lady that we would pass each other as we were do-si-doing or whatever.
Uh-oh.
And it was your alto line.
Oh, no.
That was like, get me to the church. Like you would go down like an octave. And that
Get
would
me
make
to
me
the
laugh.
church. I'm sorry.
It was so funny. And every time I passed you, I would like look at it. Get me to the church.
I just remember always we would have this spectacular choreography for Get Me to the Church on Time, and it was quite long. And so it would end with all of us, in a dreamscape, sort of collapsing on the floor from exhaustion. And it was supposed to be, then it fade up dawn and we're stumbling home because of the glorious time that we've had. But there was no actual break. So you would just go from intense physical movement to laying on the floor. And all of us were like trying to look like we were passed out, but obviously we were not.
Oh my gosh. And wasn't there like a quick change right after that too, where we had to get into the black and white?
Oh my
I
heavens.
remember there was a moment where we just had to.
Yes.
We had to walk through the back and come through. It was a whole thing.
Yes.
Oh yeah. That
The
was
joys
so
of
funny.
theater.
And And then, for those that don't know, the ensemble, they're in all the dance scenes, but they're also having to do all the maid and servant work in
Yes.
Professor Higgins' home. So we had to sing all the "Poor Professor Higgins," all that stuff. And I remember we would be so goofy and so silly before we would walk on.
That cast, my goodness. Do you remember, because you and I, we were drafted to be like the helper maids for I Could Have Danced All Night. And it's this lovely, beautiful piece, and our colleague Jessica is singing her
Oh,
heart out. She sounds glorious. And I distinctly remember one evening, we're changing her from her whatever ball gown
yes,
into her
the
nightgown.
shoes,
The
the
stupid
shoes.
shoes are
They
like
were
period
so
appropriate.
stressful.
They had like 15 hooks on either side, and we're singing and we're looking happy about it, and it got stuck.
Oh
And
my
you
gosh,
and I
yes.
are there and we're yanking on the shoe. Jessica's trying to sing. What? I mean, goodness.
Yes, because it had those little hook things because they were period shoes. You're absolutely correct. And that would stress us out every darn night. Like, is this shoe really going to do it? No, not today, shoe. Not today.
Right. I like it. Get it in gear.
I do. I know we always tried to be very professional and stay in character, but I do distinctly remember one time where we lost it in the caroling because we had to line up almost like carolers at one point
Yes, in the dark.
upstage
In the
in the
dark.
dark. And something, I think it was Isaac, I'm going to blame it on Isaac,
Yes, please do.
our bass baritone, who is insanely talented, said something silly, and then the lights go up, and we are all laughing. We could not pull it together. And I think we got a stern talking to
We did.
after that moment.
We got a little reprimand, and we deserved it.
Oh my gosh, so good. Okay, we could talk about show memories for the entire time, but before we go any further into why we love the arts so much and how it has helped us, hi Meg. Oh, Meg wants to see a recording of this show.
Oh
Do you know
my.
if it was ever recorded for archive
I
purposes?
think it must exist somewhere, but it's in, it's in a dungeon somewhere.
Yes. See, this is before everything was documented on
Yeah.
YouTube. Like
Yes.
we didn't have you. This was pre-YouTube,
Yeah.
pre-social media, almost completely. Maybe
Yes.
MySpace was out there at the time.
Yes.
Facebook
Correct.
was just beginning. So it's sad that all of these performances, you might have them on VHS, but
They're going to
yeah.
have to live vibrantly in our memories. And next time we have this symposium, I will sing that alto part for you.
Oh, please do. Please do. It just brings so much joy to my life. Always, forever, will. Oh my gosh. Well, before we go any further, let me do a disclaimer here. Please understand that the opinions shared today are purely for informational purposes and do not replace the medical advice and or opinions of your doctor. If you are experiencing chronic pain, whether it's acute or chronic, please follow up with your doctor and your medical professionals to seek the treatment that is right for you. We are sharing our personal experiences here with using art therapy that we've incorporated to help us with our chronic pain, but we are not liable for our comments since we are not acting as your personal physicians or as your personal health advocates. All right. So we've been going back and forth about all the different types of art therapy and how we have both used it, whether it's the singing, choir, theater. I do floral arrangements. I think we should just start at the beginning of kind of how you have categorized art therapy and how you've incorporated it into your journey of healing. And then I'll just interject with either viewer questions and also some information that I have gathered from Harvard about art therapy and how it has been used scientifically to ease pain and the research behind that.
Excellent. Of course, as an educator, I'm working with a lot of individuals, and during the pandemic, noticed the tremendous component that mental health was playing in our lives during that time. And we didn't have the same community experiences. Maybe we didn't have, certainly in musical theater, we didn't have the same opportunities to utilize that art form. And so, as much as possible, I think teachers, instructors, artists, everyone, we started reaching out in other directions to find that community, that connection, and those coping skills that we needed, not just for ourselves, but as mentors and instructors to try to
Yeah.
inform, especially our younger students who haven't developed those coping mechanisms
Yeah.
yet. And then, of course, I alluded to some of my own chronic pain issues in the past. I did have a partial hysterectomy in January. And so I found that also was bringing up a lot of challenges for me in terms of so much of what art addresses, which is the idea of identity. Who am I and how do I relate to the world? And so,
Mhm.
there were many mechanisms that I was employing. So I'm a huge proponent of therapy in general. Or if you would like to be involved in arts lessons, or if you are in a choir, in a dance troupe, any of these things already so beneficial. And I went online for a wonderful resource that I like to utilize. Actually, I'll just put it in the chat so you can see it. But it's an online resource called Coursera. And they have a number of free online resources that are offered primarily through colleges. And they had a class specifically devoted to the idea of art therapy, which caught my attention. And you can take this class for free. It's still available. It's offered by the University of Florida. And it was so helpful to me as an instructor and as an individual. There were a number of things that they highlighted that I already knew or had experienced, and then a variety of other things in 5 categories they were addressing, specifically the spiritual component of art therapy, how it might express itself in visual art, the way that we might utilize music, the way that we might utilize movement or somatic awareness, and then also how we might express ourselves in words. And for each individual, I think it's going to be very distinctive and very personal. Remembering, of course, the last thing I would say in this regard, because I'm talking a lot, is one of two extremes. So, of course, Kelly and I are speaking from the standpoint of professional artists. And that has a lot of benefits and challenges in and of itself
Mhm.
within the industry or outside of the industry. If you're retired or maybe now it's a recreational hobby. But I think most people would be coming at it from maybe the other perspective of, well, JW, I'm an accountant. What do I know about art? I can't do anything with music. I'm not a painter. And so, to either of those two individuals, I would say the arts can have an integral place in your life for being the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. And you do not have to be a professional artist in order for that to be the case.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And that is something that anyone, and it doesn't matter, what your background is, you can incorporate arts into your lifestyle in practical ways.
Yes.
And we're going to go through a few different categories of ways to incorporate art therapy into your life to ease pain. And I found it really fascinating the more that, as we've been preparing for this virtual event, reading about the research, the data that has been very clear that states that art therapy does indeed help with chronic pain. That's not a substitute for other therapies, but it is something that can be incorporated along with whatever your personal physician or medical professional has suggested, and you have, through shared decision making, decided is your plan of treatment. But I was reading, and I wanted just to highlight this. This is from the Harvard Medical Review, and it talks about how art therapy eases pain. And it says, art therapy helps lower the perception of pain by moving your mental focus away from the painful stimulus. It is not simply a distraction, though, because you're kind of like, oh, yeah, duh, it's just a distraction. It's not simply a distraction, but rather a way to teach you how to relax and alter your mood. It's like a muscle that's being worked. So the pain does not control your emotional state. That hit me because, as you, I'm sure, can relate, there are times when the pain is all consuming.
100%.
And when it's a new pain, it is especially all consuming.
Yes.
And when that acute new pain turns into a chronic pain, that's really when you can start to use this muscle of retraining your brain how you process pain. It's really fascinating. And we're never too old to develop those neural pathways. We are never too old. So there was a 2018 study in an issue of the Arts and Psychotherapy that looked at 200 people hospitalized for a medical issue or surgery. The researchers found that participating in art therapy for an average of 50 minutes significantly improved their moods and lowered levels of pain. Not only pain, but the anxiety related to the pain.
Yes.
So when people are in pain, they often lose their sense of control since their pain detects what they can and cannot do. Engaging in art therapy helps them reclaim ownership in their lives in terms of what art they choose and the steps they take to create something unique. It can provide a powerful form of self-expression as well as a creative outlet. I love that, JW. And I think, too, as you know, sometimes you feel completely out of control. Like you cannot control if you're going to have a good day or a bad day with your pain.
Yes.
Or if your autoimmune stuff is going to come rearing its ugly head, or if something will trigger environmentally your symptoms. But art is something that you can control. You can control picking up that brush and creating something. You can control writing a poem or a short story or getting your emotions out through even doing calligraphy, singing, movement, incorporating a spiritual practice. All of these things you can control. So there is such power in that autonomy to control the controllables. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
100%. And I think, obviously it is contextual because if my pain is at a level 10, that's not a moment that I might say, let me sit down and draw something, right? However, there are a lot of preventative measures that I can take or things that can be in place already that I can utilize if my pain is at an extreme level. And it is completely dependent on the individual in ways that make sense for them. For example, later on, as we discuss some of the benefits of music, believe it or not, that was actually one of the hardest categories for me to connect with because as professionals, we have so much technical knowledge about this particular medium. So making sure that you interact with these different mediums in a way that completely makes sense for you. I'm not necessarily in that moment interested in engaging a technique. I'm interested in enjoying the benefits of music, why I got into it in the first place. And that looks very different for each individual. And so the benefits that they receive from it are going to be very different for each individual.
I love that. That is such a good point. So there are times, and this for everyone watching, The point she is really making is that there are times when you are going to be actively participating in creating the arts, and there are times where you will be receiving the benefits. And
Yes.
and so like when I was in the hospital, I couldn't walk, I couldn't perform, I couldn't dance, I couldn't stand upright. I was so ill. But what I did every day, every night, is listen to the Phantom of the Opera.
Mm.
I listened to that on my double disc cassette, front and
Yes.
back, and I can tell you exactly where it clicks, exactly where it clicks,
Yes.
um, and where I'd have to turn it in my little diskette that I had. That was a time where I was receiving. I wasn't able to be an active participant on the stage. That would come much later when I was able to walk.
Yes.
And but the reward is the same in many levels.
Yes.
Um, I think I survived the anxiety because I had that as my love, as my grounding, as something I looked forward to, as something I connected with on a spiritual level. The
Yes.
music.
Well, and also, um, I find it beneficial, uh, mm, quote unquote, after the fact. There's a lot of pain and anxiety in processing the pain and anxiety because we are not in control of
Mhm.
our circumstances in that regard.
Yeah.
And so I also find the arts useful in that when that fear or when that anxiety comes up, I can create space for that to process that emotion so it doesn't get shoved further and further down, at least for me, then also creating psychosomatic problems that I could be dealing with. And so I find it really helpful in the before, in much of the during, and then also in the processing afterwards.
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, so here we are. Let's talk a little bit about the spiritual slide up here and some of the things that you have incorporated as forms of art to help you with your chronic pain.
Absolutely. So I would like to preface because I'm working with all kinds of different students with different backgrounds. So primarily, I'm using a Judeo Christian perspective as my conduit that I'm interacting with the spiritual. But that's certainly not true for everyone.
Mhm.
And I would even, I guess I don't want to use the word argue, I would encourage anyone who maybe even would label themselves as an atheist. Maybe they would say, "Well, I don't know that I believe in something divine or that type of spiritual idea." I would encourage you simply to consider the greater than self or the community or humanity that you find yourself a part of. I do believe that art is divine and it can be very connective, whatever your background or your spiritual beliefs are. And you'll notice some of the things, these are some of the things that I personally utilize that were beneficial, and also some things that I listed from the Coursera class. Those would be things like meditations, or a mantra that I've had over the last year is mindfulness without judgment, which have not figured out yet. But I am working on it. I am working on it. And so that is actually something I'm specifically doing this week. I'm researching some
Wow.
different apps that exist that you can utilize for your meditations. One thing that I also referenced in our notes, if you pop on YouTube, there are some specific meditations that you can find for artists. Um, you can reference podcasts, prayer cards. I enjoy listening to sermons if I'm in the right mindset and I'm able to do that. Of course, another go-to for me would be worship music, but in another way, later on when we talk about music in general, I actually, all of a sudden, I wanted to put together a playlist on YouTube of 80s tunes, just like fun, frivolous, silly kinds of songs. And of course, another thing that we talk about in this category of the spiritual is the idea of the inner critic.
Mm.
And so, in many of these artistic mediums that we're trying for the first time, here comes your inner critic.
Yeah.
You're not doing this right. This looks silly. You're not a professional in this regard. And we can have a conversation with them, but we can also turn the volume down on that thought that would say, Jen, you have a master's in music. What are you doing listening
Mm.
to 80s music? That's not the classics. What does Mozart think? And meanwhile, we're here in a hospital bed. We're saying, well, Mozart isn't here. I'm doing what I want to do. And so, whether you're listening to worship music or something else, a lot of the things that you can see listed here, I think would be really
Mm-hmm.
beneficial, not just for our spiritual practice, but again, pain is so isolating.
It
We are looking
is.
for things that connect us outward to why we are not alone. And the arts can help us to do that.
Oh, that's such a great point. And we are wired for community.
Yes.
Pain is so isolating. You are absolutely dead on with that. And I think the other point too that I grabbed onto from what you just said was that inner critic that wants to say, "Why would you start that?
Yes.
You're not gifted. You did. I mean, who do you think you are that you can do this or do that?" And
Right.
first of all, you do not have to be an artist to benefit from art therapy. And the type of art to really, there is no right or wrong type of art that's best or not best for you. It is simply something that maybe brings you joy. And I was thinking about when you were saying that inner critic. Yeah, there's this quote. I can't remember who said it, but she's a writer, and she said, "I hate writing, but I love to have written."
Yes.
And that is absolutely true. I was working on a blog all day yesterday, and I was like, I can't do this. This is it. This is my last blog. I'm never going to write. The well is dry.
Yes.
I'm throwing my pen. This is it. And then I get through it. I'm like, oh, well, look at that. I did it.
Yes.
I did it. And I do that with everything. If I sit down to do a rehearsal for the choir I'm in, I can't do this. I'm done. I'm done.
This
and
is
then
impossible.
I'm like, oh, yes, but I got through it. Same thing with if I'm doing a flower arrangement for my friend or my sister-in-law's baby shower. That's it. I've got no ideas. I'm done. All my ideas are gone. I peaked many years ago. It's like, and then you do it, and you're so proud of yourself. So it's like, shut up, inner critic. Turn that volume down.
It's so true. I remember I was watching, and I'm sure many people have said this before, but I was watching an interview with Robert Downey Jr. And he said, I'm so confused sometimes when I run into situations and an individual, it's as though they think they've run out of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
This is not possible. You were created to create. That's the template. And so we obviously go through different seasons of not feeling as interconnected, with that source of creativity. But it is always there. It is always available. And having that accountability, if anyone knows that you are doing art therapy, or if you decide that you want to share any of those things with other people, it can act as a resource, because even as a professional artist, the exact same thing will happen to me. I don't want to do this assignment. I couldn't possibly. I've run out of ideas. And so you kind of just need to take that inner critic by the hand and say, all right, I've heard what you have to say, and now we're going to do something else.
Yes. I acknowledge your thoughts. Thank you for sharing. Now moving on.
Exactly.
Okay, so we are having such a good time with this conversation that we only have 15 minutes left. So I want to go into the music.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about how you've incorporated music, and I know I've incorporated music into one tool of the toolbox of helping deal with chronic pain.
Absolutely. And forgive me, I did actually just want to say one last thing for the spiritual component. Highly recommend the book Art and Faith. I've put in the chat window if anybody
Mm.
wants to check that out. And Makoto Fujimura is specifically talking about this as it relates to painting. But I found it very applicable for the spiritual component and then also for the music component. You'll notice for those of us who are professional artists, we could utilize things like composition, instruments that we already play. Again, I do want to be specific about the way I'm doing this because I'm not necessarily sitting down at the piano in order to work on Hanon exercises. I'm not necessarily working on the correct fingering for a
Mm-hmm.
Mozart piece. Um, I'm just having fun. I'm
Mm-hmm.
expressing an idea. Um, or ways that I haven't approached it before. They also mentioned utilizing singing bowls or creating, I've created several song lists on YouTube or Spotify. Again, that's a really great opportunity. If you find yourself that the pain is at an unmanageable level, if I can just hit the play button, then I can experience the benefits of art. If I find myself, immobile or in a
Yeah.
very high level of pain, there are still ways that I can, as my teachers used to say, I can set myself up to win.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And of course, they do also mention things like chanting, singing, even humming. As a vocalist, I love this idea. And please, please, I mean, remember, scripture says, make a joyful noise. For heaven's sakes, someone's not going to burst into your room and start, critiquing your vocal components. That's not what we're talking about. The idea of just voicing that which feels helpless, that which feels unvoiced, can be so empowering to even just speak out loud or to hum if you can, has immediate biochemical benefits. And so I would
Mm-hmm.
encourage anyone to pursue this in a way, again, that makes sense for you, whether you consider yourself a vocalist or not.
Yeah, it's so good. I love that so much. Okay, let's go on to the next one here.
Great.
We've got people, we got Kathy on with us, we got Meg on with us. They are just loving this conversation. They're writing down all the tips and the books and the websites. So people are really are engaged right now. I'm really thankful for this conversation. Okay, so let's talk about visual arts
Wonderful.
and what falls under that category.
So this one I actually felt I had the most quote unquote success with because from a comparative standpoint, I feel I know next to nothing about visual art. I
Hmm.
love going to museums. I recently went to the immersive Van Gogh exhibit.
Oh, so good.
It was so delightful. But I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I was always taking music and dance classes. So I never really sat down in a painting class, in a drawing class. And the amount of liberation that I found in that fact was really
Hmm.
surprising to me because there was
Hmm.
no technique I was drawing on. There was literally no expectation whatsoever. And so when I would purchase painting supplies or would attempt sculpting, coloring, I particularly have a lot of fun with collage. There was no inner critic that I was
Yes.
battling. Another book I did want to put in the chat window is the book Art and Fear. And
Oh.
so if you are running into that inner critic that is showing up when you don't want it to, this book is also great because it's nice and short. I think it's under 100 pages long, but it really is so specific. And then the other thing that I would want to speak to with the idea of visual art is I think a lot of times we just don't recognize that something is creative or artistic when it absolutely is. So if
Mm-hmm.
you already are interested in utilizing things like sewing, knitting, crafts, you mentioned floral arrangements, making jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
One day I was kind of battling my body and I wasn't feeling particularly grateful for it. So I busted out some of the body paint that I had and I just started writing positive phrases on
Oh
my
my gosh,
body.
I
I
love that.
started writing I looked up poetry that was about love and I literally just wrote it all over my body. And that is such a beautiful way that we can personify art and
Mm-hmm.
to try to find gratitude and thankfulness in areas of our life that might not be easy to find.
Mm, so good. I'm. I think to make an excellent point about mixing it up a little bit. If you are because you were educated in music, it can be distracting to go to hear someone sing if they are maybe off pitch
Sure.
or they're using their breath at the wrong spot, and you know that they're struggling, and so you're taken out of that. I do that when I see musical theater sometimes, where I go, "Oh, they're upstaging themselves," or they're
Right,
I would make this choice and not that choice, and it
right.
can be
That
distracting.
lyric was wrong. Yeah.
It should be get me to the church.
Oh my heavens. Yeah.
But so it can be distracting, but when you mix it up, like you said, you went to see the Van Gogh exhibit, and you weren't in your head about it. You were
Yes.
able to completely immerse yourself and engage in the experience.
Yes.
And I do that a lot. I try to incorporate poetry into
Mm.
my life. I have since I was very young used that form of art to deal with my chronic pain. And I feel that with that, it's so free form that I'm not restricted by, oh, I'm not right in that sweet spot of that note, or oh, I don't have to worry about my breath control if I'm sustaining this note, or I really messed up that lyric, or all these things that I would in professional theater or in music. I can relax and use it. So, what we're saying is, don't think that you have to limit yourself to one of these categories, or if you feel a propensity of your talent is in one of
Yes.
these categories, it does not mean that you're restricted to that. Um, I purposely don't sing on the worship team at the church that I attend because even though I maybe have been known as a singer, I like to use my gifts that I feel called to in other ways.
Yes.
So, think about that. Maybe something you haven't tried before, maybe something that's completely out of your wheelhouse
Mm.
that will challenge your brain, develop those neural pathways, and ultimately get your mind off your chronic pain and help you establish that muscle of resiliency through the arts.
Well, I love that idea of speaking to just creativity in general, because a lot of times when we think of that word, we immediately associate it with the arts, which I think is wonderful. But as you are developing these new thoughts, these new muscles, these new synapses in new
Mhm.
ways, creativity is a life resource. So as you develop that muscle, then potentially when you go to have a conversation with your community of medical professionals, your creativity is already working in new ways. And so the ideas that started to stream into my head when it came to other avenues of life and ways that I might accomplish these things, that also was beneficial, and that didn't really have anything to do with artistic pursuits. It was just
Mhm.
developing my ability to think outside of the box.
Yes, I was looking at your reels the other day of your scrapbooking and how, and mood boards, and being able to take swatches of different colors and articles from magazines and different textures and visualize them in front of you and put the pieces together. I mean, that is visual art, and that is something that anyone can do at any time
Yes.
with things that you have around. And it allows you to get how you're feeling out onto a board
Yes.
without having to take singing lessons or whatever else you
Yes.
think might limit you
Right.
to exploring the arts. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, let's talk about one of my favorites, movement.
Yes. Okay,
Movement.
this one I also, this I'm going to need to be spending a lot of time on for myself as an individual. I did also want to mention another book that I have particularly enjoyed. Again, we'll just kind of quickly toss these in the chat window. I really love the book Make Your Creative Dreams Real. This is by the author Sark. If anyone wants to check that out, I find that really useful. Movement and somatic awareness. This is really tough for me, which is odd because I, in some regards, would think of myself as a dancer, but I think because chronic pain
Yes.
often can feel like such a betrayal, we can
Yes.
be in such a battle with our own body that one of two extremes will occur for me. Either the sensitivity is so heightened that physically I can't feel anything else, right? And it's just a wash of pain. You see pain, you feel pain,
Yes.
you hear,
Yes.
taste, everything is pain. Or then, understandably, a lot of times, simply for survival, we will oscillate to the other extreme. I am ignoring nuances in my body, even positive ones. You know, maybe I feel a sense of joy or a sense of euphoria, but I don't want to naturally connect with my body's sensitivity because then when I experience pain, it will be even more intense. And so ultimately, in the long term, I want to find ways to authentically reconnect with my body, attempting to utilize it as the instrument and the tool that it is, whether it's functioning the way I want it to or not, and trying to create some sort of space and grace for that. Um, they suggest some marvelous resources in the class that I mentioned. Obviously, dance. I even went on YouTube and did some fun musical theater pieces, tutorials that were listed. Whatever type of exercise you might be able to do, if you can take a walk in nature, if you would like to learn more about ASL, if you want to utilize scarves or I got one of those. I think it's not a strobe light, but it's something that sort of like creates special lighting in the room. Obviously, you can do things like yoga. If you happen to participate in musical theater, that is very utilizes your body a lot. And then things that the average person might not immediately think of. So if we're utilizing things like massage or travel, the ability to get up and move and put ourselves in a different environment, experiencing nature, even things like food or cooking, feeding our body in positive ways, literally creating new things that we and other people can enjoy. These are all ways that you can reconnect with your body in positive ways that can be artistic and beneficial.
I love that. I think too, JW, out of all of these categories, the movement piece might be the most difficult for people to process. How can I incorporate this into my life? And I think just through my personal experience, I can't speak for everyone, one of the problems that I have is anticipatory pain, where I
Yes.
think, oh boy, if I do this class, if I'm in this show, if I go and work out in my garage and choreograph a number in my garage, which I do, I'm going to be in so much pain. So I shouldn't go there. I shouldn't do it. So we set ourselves up thinking that I'm going to be in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been proven to actually make your brain feel what you are anticipating. Like our brains are so powerful. That act of suggestion can literally make us be in pain and stop us from experiencing joy and even from ourselves and our recovery and all these things that our body, magnificent bodies do. So I
Yes.
think that is a really interesting thing where we can get into these cycles of anticipatory pain that stops us from moving, and then we don't move, and then our bodies
Yes.
can get even more and more stuck in pain cycles. And don't get me wrong, there is an absolute time to rest, and rest is vital, but there is a time to move too. And movement has been scientifically proven to be the only thing, I'm getting this out of the Lupus Encyclopedia, but this is not just about lupus, but overall, that helps with fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
There is no medication you can take that will completely obliterate fatigue.
Yes.
Movement does. It signals your brain to get those neurotransmitters firing, those cells regrowing and repairing. It gets the blood flowing. It gets the oxygen rich everything to your muscles and your fascia and your joints. So that's kind of why I gravitate toward it. I always have loved being in dance class ever since I was 3 years old. And that was the hardest part of my journey with chronic pain and chronic illness is when I had that taken away. When, like you said, your body betrays you.
Yes. And I think finding that balance, we say this over and over, it starts to sound cliche, but really trying to find grace and space. Even if my body is not operating the way that I want it to in this moment, how can I focus on what it can do?
Mhm.
What can I do in this moment? And I'm not talking about toxic positivity. I'm just talking about identifying that which helps me move forward, literally or metaphorically. And if you have a personality, maybe such as ours, that has been accustomed to just bulldozing through the epicenter of pain,
Yes.
right? I
Good
guilty
word. Very good word.
many, many times, right? I'm just going to force my body to do this thing. We've all been there in some regard. And so trying to figure out what is the balance here? What is the movement that I can do? Right? I can stretch myself, I can challenge myself, but I'm also listening to myself. I'm
Yeah.
listening to my body, and I am acknowledging the limitations while celebrating the positives of what it can do.
Yeah, it's that acceptance. I think
Yes.
that mindfulness of where you are and what you can accomplish in the moment. It's not resignation.
Right.
It's not resignation. Gosh, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, what do I have here? Oh, words. There we go.
Yes.
That's a
Good.
good one.
And I think I could be wrong. I think this is our final category that we're talking about today.
Yes.
Also, I'm sorry, I'm always doing this the second after another. This is going to turn into a reading rainbow moment because JW likes her books. I wanted to recommend, I'm sorry, the book Breath by James Nestor. A lot of times, depending on what your physical symptoms might be, sometimes this is the most that we can accomplish. And
Mm,
so I would encourage anyone to check this out and not to underestimate, again, the smallest amount that you can do sometimes will have the biggest impact. As we're talking about all these books that I keep shoving down people's throats, let's move on to the category of words. And this, I am particularly delighted in right now. If I could do actually a quick plug, one of the creative ideas that came out of the art therapy that I was doing I had started writing, I had continued my blog. And so
Mhm.
I was finding it a lot of times really difficult just when I was chatting with individuals. Either they couldn't seem to understand what I was talking about, or I couldn't articulate it in the moment. And so I really wanted to sit down, kind of craft out the ideas in a way that I hoped people and myself could understand. And
Mm.
so I'm really excited because by the end of this year, I am going to be a self published author because I'm
Oh.
taking all of those blogs and some of the artwork that I had done during my surgery prep and recovery time, and I'm putting them together in a book.
Oh, I
So,
love it.
yeah, so if anybody wants to pop on Amazon, it will be available. The floating title right now of the book is The One with the Hysterectomy. So,
Oh, a little ode to friends there, right?
true. I thought you would get that. And
Of
so
course.
that's kind of neat because that is a tangible way that some of my artistic ideas are coming to fruition. But none of these activities have to come to fruition in specific quantifiable
Mm.
ways. The benefit
Mhm.
of the arts is just the benefit of expression. Uh, and
Yes. It doesn't
you
have to be monetized either.
no, it does not have
Yes.
to be monetized.
Yes.
No one
Yes.
has to view it. This can happen in the quiet of your
Yes.
own heart. Sometimes just the benefit of words is the tangible expression of getting it down on paper so it feels more manageable. It feels
Yes.
more accessible. Or like you mentioned, listening to poetry, reading Shakespeare, watching a play,
Mhm.
whether you are at home or you have the privilege of going to the theater. I don't know
Mhm.
about you, but one of the most powerful experiences that I've had as a human is reading an idea that I previously thought was only happening in my life. I was isolated in this feeling, this experience, this idea. And then reading it on the page that
Mm.
someone else has experienced something in this regard is so empowering and so connective. And that can happen in our conversations, in the written word, in podcasts that we are listening to. So many
Yes.
different ways that voicing those things, reading those words, can connect us.
Yes. Yes. And you brought up such a good point about you don't have to share
No.
your words with anyone. That is completely up to you. You could write something and burn it. You
Yes.
could write something and keep it in a journal that you only know where it is and no one needs to ever read it. The same thing
Yes.
if you wanted to write a song or draw a picture or um, do a mood board or whatever it is, it's completely up to you. You have that choice. It doesn't have to be public. It doesn't have to be monetized. It doesn't. It always when I do something that I really enjoy, I think the first thing people say to me is, "Why don't you start a business?" I'm like, first
Yes.
of all, with what time, and second of all, I don't feel the need to monetize it just because I enjoy it.
Yes. That
You
doesn't
know,
necessarily give something value. There's so
yes,
much value in existence that, of course,
hmm
doesn't have anything to do with money whatsoever.
yes. And if the people in your life say those things to you,
Mm.
you're going to have to learn the boundaries of um, that's not what I'm getting out of this.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And I don't have to explain to people in my life why I'm taking time to incorporate arts into my life and I'm not making money off of it.
Yes.
You owe no explanation.
Absolutely.
That could be a whole other
I know,
live.
right?
We could go into that
Moving
for a very
on.
long time. Moving on.
Yes, to our second symposium of yes, yeah, finding real value. Yes, and setting up
hmm
boundaries. Oof, yeah,
Oh, we could do like five more actually if we wanted to do.
I know.
Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. So it is 1:08. We have been talking for
Yes.
over an hour. The time has flown by.
Yes.
Um, there has been one person who has been on this chat since the beginning that I want to acknowledge. Her name is Meg.
Mm.
And Meg, you were the one that shared this on your personal Facebook page. There have been many people watching, but you're the one who wrote shared in the comment section. So guess what, Meg? Guess what?
Yes.
Guess what, Meg? You just won yourself an art swag bag, but not only all this fun stuff, you just won yourself a free lesson of choice from
Yes.
my good friend and professional artist and educator, Jennifer. Jennifer,
Yes.
talk a little bit about the lesson that you are so graciously giving to our good friend Meg here, who is
Yes.
a doll, and she's crying. Meg is crying. Yeah.
That's our hope. Let's make as many people cry as possible. Well, have no fear, Meg, right? Do I have, is that correct?
Yes.
Have no fear, Meg. If you're thinking to yourself, oh my heavens, JW is going to make me sing an Italian aria. This could not be further from the truth. So we could really we could spend the entire lesson just chatting, hearing about some of your goals, any ideas that you would want to cultivate, ways that you might be able to put some of these ideas easily into play in your life. I have the privilege of working with students, not just for music, but we also do acting, do a lot of voiceover work. If you happen to play an instrument, that's amazing. I do also teach piano and ukulele, but I would really just enjoy our time together, chatting for 30 minutes and hearing about your life and ways that you can express yourself and your identity in any of these categories or even others that we may not have thought of. I would love to help you come up with some of those ideas. And thank you, Kelly. You've put the QR code up here. If anybody, another quick plug, if anybody would like to pop on our, we have a business Instagram account and also have a business Facebook account if you'd like to get connected with Music for Me Studios. You know, we're always doing free events like this. I really just want to make art accessible for everyone.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
believe that art can be at the epicenter of what any individual is doing and is enjoying in their life. And so if anyone wants to check that out, that'd be awesome. And Meg, I can't wait. Let's get connected.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm sure she's going to tell you this, but she wrote in the comments that she grew up playing classical piano. Then she was a part of band and she did plays.
Oh,
So
wow.
you have a great person to connect with. I don't think it is a better fit for the free lesson.
Great.
And I know she'll tell you a little bit about her health journey as well, because I've known her for a long time, and she has
Wonderful.
been a great support to More Than Lupus. Um, there is a lot here to this conversation, and we barely skimmed the surface. But I just want to say thank you so much, Jennifer, for the laughs, for the memories, for just being someone who gets it and someone who not only you've been so supportive of More Than Lupus, but you've been supportive of me. And I hope that you know that I'm always there for you too. And you are just, there is something special about you. I've always felt that way. And um, so grateful to have you in my life. And I'm so thankful that we were able to introduce you to the More Than Lupus community here. And hopefully have you back to talk more because we could
I
talk for
know.
hours, hours.
We've set up an entire series. Our next hypothetical, well, I'll just sing that alto line for you and we
Please
can do
do.
our own shows.
And we'll get a fake fire and we'll warm our hands around the fake fire before we start.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
Oh
so
my gosh.
much, Kelly. And we were chatting before we started this symposium that so many times there are creative ideas that float into our head, and maybe they're not even meant to come to fruition. But such a special opportunity that you took the time to assemble this and for us to have this conversation. So I'm really grateful for you and everything that you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, love it when something comes from an idea and it actually happens. Oh, it just makes me so happy. Makes me so happy. Okay, guys, so the exciting thing about this event today is that it's going to be downloaded to YouTube. So you can not only watch it on the More Than Lupus Facebook page, but you also can you can share it on YouTube. If you know someone who does not have Facebook, they can watch it. There's been so many great resources, books shared today, ideas, and hopefully at the end of the day, we just inspired you to maybe pursue something that you've been thinking about, maybe a secret passion that you're like, gosh, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I always wanted to play the ukulele. Well, gosh darn it, today's the first day of the rest of your life. Go get a lesson or go try the ukulele. You don't have to be the best. Just step out of your comfort zone and try something, and you'll be amazed to see how incorporating art into your life can help you with your chronic pain.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. It for now. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.